Scott, Xbox is moving full speed ahead on next-gen console. Ryan Dinsdale over at IGN. Microsoft is moving, quote, full speed ahead, end quote, on its next-generation console. In an internal email from Xbox President Sarah Bond has revealed. The email obtained by Windows Central and verified to be genuine by Microsoft also announced the formation of a game preservation team at Xbox. That's always cool. Quote, we are moving full speed ahead on our next generation hardware, focused on delivering the biggest technological leap ever in a generation. End quote. Dude, those are massive words. Massive words.
They really are, because at this point we haven't seen the full utilization of these consoles, and that's what irks me. But
yeah, we'll get into it, absolutely. Bond said, reiterating comments made in February when the console's existence was officially announced. No further information was shared regarding the hardware itself, nor when fans might be able to buy it, but documents leaked in 2023 suggested Microsoft plans to release the next Xbox in 2028. Regardless, dude, 4 years away. That's 4 years away. So we're into another 8-year life cycle. That's where we're at.
Yeah, that was kind of the traditional means, right? About 8 years, a few generations ago. So that would be a natural point.
Too long.
Yeah, 10 feels like it's stretching too long. Nintendo, looking at you.
Regardless, with Microsoft seemingly making its development a priority, it will likely be available sooner rather than later. Alongside it looking to the future, Xbox also appears committed to the past and present. Quote, we have formed a new team dedicated to game preservation, important to all of us at Xbox and the industry itself, end quote. Bond said in an email, quote, we are building on our strong history of delivering backwards compatibility to our players, and we remain committed to bringing forward the amazing library of Xbox games for future generations of players to enjoy. End quote. While game preservation is largely concerned with ensuring classic titles don't become lost to time, it's ironically the current generation of games which may be at risk the most, obviously, due to the fact that it requires digital formats, and the online requirements alone, Scott, make this a bit of a hiccup, right? Not to mention the live service games.
A lot of service, or a lot of server checks, even if it's not an online game, and there's always online requirements, even if you don't need things like Suicide Squad that could have had an offline mode, but just don't, or at least didn't at launch.
Which makes no sense. Dude, that makes no sense with that game.
It really is bizarre, but I think this is one of these large corporations, one of the big three, listening to that feedback. Game preservation has been kind of brought up every single time there's a physical-only release, a digital-only release.
Yeah.
Or anytime the servers have to shut down. I think even today, the Nintendo servers are shutting down for Wii U and 3DS. Yeah. So those games are just gone. They're lost to the sands of time now. Sands of time would be another. Interestingly, you can't bring some of these games forward. But I think what this is, and especially this announcement, is for Sarah Bond for Xbox to get ahead of that problem and say, hey, look, we're the good guys again. Remember us? Every time we make an announcement like that, we're the good guys. We're thinking about game preservation going forward. And my larger thoughts on that is I think this is what's going to define the newer generation. I think the new console generation is less about having the fastest, strongest horsepower. I think it's more about what ecosystem do you belong in. Are you Team Green, Team Red, or Team Blue? And I think because moving forward, all of the games from the past, we're going to try and keep those active, keep those available for you. And the games in the future, again, they're going to fit into this mold. How many people still have an Xbox One right now that don't have a Series X? Because of all of the cross-console releases, you don't necessarily need the Series X yet. And I think that's going to be the same moving forward. I think this is kind of Xbox setting that.
It is interesting to think of where Xbox could be going. Dude, remember when Xbox One, TV, Call of Duty, TV, and then they deviated back. The fans were like, what is this? Their vision, they had a vision, they didn't stick with it, they went somewhere else. Now, obviously, Xbox being in a new place, Microsoft being in a new place, Sarah Bond leading the charge, Phil Spencer in charge, right? There's different heads, Matt Booty's involved. Like the top three over at Xbox. Man, it's so, you take a look at Xbox and then you take a look at PlayStation. And I always compare the two because competition. But when you think of Xbox, dude, there's three faces now I picture instantly, right? Like there's Sarah, there's Phil, and there's Matt. You go over to PlayStation. I'm like, man, and yet you guys are still like one of the biggest platforms to go to, right? When it comes to consoles, PlayStation's still leading the charge, but they don't have that face. And I keep wanting that face. The days of Shuhei leading the, hey everybody, we're PlayStation, big smile on his face.
Oh,
right?
even Herman
awesome.
Holst.
Herman Holst is there. He's still technically there, but it's still kind of like, huh? What do you like? He's not really the big face, right? So I don't know, man. Sean Layden was a huge face at one point until they let him go. I think he had a different idea where PlayStation should go, and they didn't like that, so I think they outed him. But that's for a different time. So, but at the end of the day, when it comes back to Xbox, when it says this is the next big leap for the generation, right? The biggest technological leap, besides being PC, where you can just customize your PC out the wazoo to no end. Is this where we make a past? We go past the, because this is coming up in a later topic for today. The 30 frames per second is a big problem for people. Dude, at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect me. It doesn't bother me. If you put them side by side, I might notice, right? But I don't see that, oh, there it is, right? Like, you know what I mean? For me, dude, I played 1,000 games at 30 frames per second and loved every minute of it. But some people are like, yo, this 30 frames sucks. Where's the 60? We're at a point right now where some games still can't handle 60 frames per second. We've heard rumblings of GTA 6 not coming at 60 frames per second. Even with the console mid-gen refresh, talking about PS5 Pro, whether or not we get an Xbox mid-gen refresh with a Pro as well, with the Series X Pro or whatever they're going to call it, right? Those rumblings right now still specify that GTA 6 will not handle 60 frames per second. What if the next generation, Scott, goes to 120 frames per second instead, and it just annihilates the 60 worry, gives us 120, gives us the 4K, the 8K that is eventually coming down the line, which my eyes won't focus on anyways, won't matter, I'm too old for that.
I lost the ability to see 8K 20 years ago.
Right? I like my 4K TV. It's funny, we have two TVs side by side here at the house, and my TV is definitely looking outdated to my wife's TV. My wife's got a beautiful TV. Dude, I put Predecessor on there the other day. I was like, wow. Right? Like, it's just the colors. And just when you get into this OLED situation as well, like, even that will be a notch up from her TV. And I think a lot of it comes down to not only the specs of the console, but the TV hardware that you're running at the time as well. So if you're able to match those, whoo, man, we could be firing on all cylinders here, right? But when it comes to Xbox, I don't know if the next console generational technological leap for Xbox, as rumblings have been in the market, in the industry of going to a handheld, is truly their next generational leap. I wonder how else, because every console you look, here's the new, here's the shiny, this is the teraflops, the gigabytes, the hard drive, here's all your specs, right? What pushes this to that next level? And if it's this big, Xbox going to a handheld, I don't know if that's their next big push, or if it's more on frames per second, where everybody as a gamer seems to be complaining about these days.
Yeah, the frames per second is definitely a focal point, but I'm thinking even if you give the ability to get 120 frames per second, I think the development studios are just going to push that to the point where they can't. It's still, they're going to settle for 30 frames per second, but give you a much richer, fuller experience. I see that being the way it goes, because traditionally we're just getting bigger, better. But I'm thinking the next console generation, I really do think that's going handheld. And I think that fits in with what this Sarah program is. Because what do you think their backwards compatibility is going to look like? Do you think that's going to be the ability to put a disc in the drive forever?
Ooh.
Because that's one aspect to it. But then that's how Nintendo traditionally has physically been able to facilitate that backwards compatibility. But you come to the Switch, something handheld, and you can't. It doesn't have space for a disc drive. It just doesn't. Nope. And that Nintendo backwards compatibility catalog becomes a subscription. And I can foresee Xbox doing the exact same thing. It becomes a subscription, part of your Game Pass, your Game Pass Legacy, we'll call it. And yeah, you get Game Pass Ultimate Legacy. That'll allow you to download and play these games on the go.
4 tiers to go through. Oh man, please don't do that.
No, it's rough, but I really foresee the next generation looking quite alien to our normal sensibilities.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be an interesting time to see what Xbox has to show us here for the next console. Man, love to hear from everybody else. Hit us up over on Twitter at the official ITG. What do you think the next Xbox is going to be?